Welcome to my WAC Flicks. This is where I quickly run through films that get a bad reputation, but are worth a chance. Today, we're going to dive into an old horror love story, Wes Craven's Deadly Friend, starring a bunch of people you probably don't know, and the angry old lady from the Goonies. This movie was on every other Sunday afternoon on my local TV station. You could almost guarantee that it would be on at any given Sunday. Censored for TV, of course, but still there, in all its glory. If you have never seen this movie, well, you're in for a treat. The best way to describe this one is a sci-fi, coming-of-age, young love, horror story with some adult themes and strange sudden gore. Let's start at the beginning. The movie opens with a car thief breaking into this 80s van. When he gets in, he's scared off by a terrifyingly cute robot. Then, we meet our main character, Paul.
Got a whole new world for you to learn, huh?
A super nerdy genius who seems to have created this fully functional AI robot.
BB. BB.
BB. He reminds me of a cute version of Johnny 5. Anyway, it looks like BB is self-aware and is protecting Paul. This movie starts off like a 80s teen romance. It has all those familiar scenes from movies at the time. Small town, adventurous teens, etc. Paul and his mother are new to this neighborhood. They are starting fresh in a new town, kinda like Karate Kid. Later, Paul and BB run into their new neighbor, Sam, played by the very cute Christy Swanson. Let me just say, when I was a young little robot, I had a huge crush on this character. Sam has a strong personality, but is also shy and vulnerable. She is also extremely sweet. This movie immediately succeeds in establishing an innocent and awkward young romance between Paul and Sam. I always looked forward to their interactions. I wish the movie explored more of this early on. Anyway, Paul notices that Sam has some bruises on her arm. This implied something more nefarious. Shortly after, her angry father commands her to come back inside. You can see where this is going. Next, Paul makes another friend, Tom, the happy-go-lucky kid who shows Paul around the neighborhood. They stop at Miss Parker's house. She's the angry old lady of the neighborhood, played by the angry old lady from Goonies.
It's just a robot, Miss Parker. He's your new neighbor.
You get that thing out of here, I'll blow your heads off.
Okay.
As usual, she's pissed off. While exploring, the kids are then harassed by a bunch of local 80s punks. As expected, BB saves the day by crushing the leader's testicles. We now see that BB is capable of inflicting pain to humans. His eyes turn red, too, foreshadowing that BB isn't as innocent as we think. Later that night, Sam brings over a housewarming present.
Oh, I love these. I love them. Thank you. Come on in. Come on in.
Paul shows off his nerdy room and the creepy attic. Sam's angry father shows up at the door, angry. Sam starts to make excuses. It's clear now that there is some kind of abuse happening here.
Why don't you tell these people you're sorry for bothering them?
Oh, but she wasn't sorry.
Hey, this won't happen again.
Later, in bed, Sam has a horrible, Nightmare on Elm Street style encounter with her father. It's clear that there is something even more disturbing to this abuse. The next day, Paul is teaching class, and then the friends play basketball with BB. A very wholesome scene, until they give the ball to BB, and the idiot robot throws it across the street. It falls into Mrs. Parker's yard. She comes out, grabs the ball, and throws it in the house.
You can't do that. Oh, yes, I can. My property, my house, my ball.
BB gets very angry at this. Next, Paul is performing brain surgery. Yes, this kid is a young prodigy. He's figured out how to reanimate a dead body just by sticking a few wires into its head. It's just that easy. Hey, it's the 80s. That's how brains worked back then. Anyway, his professor is very impressed. Later, while carving a pumpkin with his mother, Paul is visited by Sam once again. This time her nose is bleeding. Paul's mother knows what's going on here, and tries to confront Sam about her father. Sam denies anything is happening, of course.
Oh, Sam, I don't like this. Sometimes I want to roll a truck over his face, but he's still my father.
Cut to a fun Halloween night, where the kids are just being kids. They make BB break into Mrs. Parker's yard. Then, Sam goes over to Mrs. Parker's door to prank her. BB starts to approach the old lady with his evil red eyes. Paul tries to stop the robot, but it's no longer responding to his commands. The lady freaks out and shoots the shit out of the robot. This is the end of our little friend, BB. Sometime later, Paul tries to enjoy Thanksgiving with his mother and Sam. They have a nice time while Sam's father is asleep. Then, the magical moment finally happens. Paul and Sam kiss. Aside from BB's death, this is a wonderful moment for the two lovebirds. Unfortunately, Sam's father is in another angry mood. They argue, and Sam flies down the stairs. She is taken to the hospital, where the doctors operate on her brain. Unfortunately, Sam does not survive. This was a brutal twist when I was a kid. I didn't expect Sam to die. Paul is devastated and runs home. He looks at BB's processor and gets an idea. He runs to Tom's house during whatever time of day they want us to think this is, and he asks Tom for help with reviving Sam. The two boys then plan on drugging Paul's mother so they can drive out to the hospital.
Boy, I make good coffee.
The plan works and knocks out Paul's mom. They sneak into the hospital via the basement, right as Sam is being taken off life support. After a successful distraction, Paul stuffs Sam into a laundry bag, and they drive to the lab. Paul easily installs BB's processor chip into Sam's brain. Like I said, it was easy to make cyborgs and stuff back then. The 80s were pretty advanced.
Nothing is happening.
It seems to have worked, and Tom freaks out. He's having massive second thoughts about this. They stick Sam in the shed and check on Paul's mom. She looks dead, so the boys freak out.
Oh, God. Mom!
But it's a false alarm. Later, Paul tries out his new friend, Robo Sam.
You got it. Here you are.
Seems to work. She immediately catches a glimpse of her father across the way and looks at him menacingly. Paul has to leave her alone and go do his thing. I always felt like Paul didn't have a plan for this. All feels a bit strange. The next morning, there is a false alarm when Paul's mother finds the sleeping bag, but Sam is gone. Paul goes nuts and starts to search the neighborhood, but Sam is at her home, and she's ready to take revenge.
Sam, it was an accident.
She lures her father into the basement, twists his rubber hand, and cracks his neck on the furnace. Paul finds her and her cooked father. This whole thing is starting to look like a bad idea. Paul does a horrible job of hiding the dead body, and then locks Sam into his room so she doesn't do any more damage. Cut to Elvira Parker. She's watching TV and then notices the dead girl next door peeking out of the window. She calls the cops. The cops dismiss her as the crazy old lady. Sam opens Elvira's gate lock, just like BB did, and then makes her way inside Elvira's house. Sam and BB both have a score to settle with the angry old lady. After this creepy slow-motion basketball bounce, Sam sneaks up on Elvira.
Damn shit.
She throws the old lady against the wall, grabs the basketball, and then, we are treated to one of the top 5 funniest horror kills of my childhood. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, RB, there's no way this kill is funnier than the kid exploding in the sleeping bag from Prophecy. Well, I'm here to tell you, that Elvira's death is almost equally hilarious. Let's see that again. This head explosion is so comical that it very quickly turns this movie into a campy comedy. I don't think I can even classify it as a head explosion. It's more of a porcelain bowl filled with raspberry jelly breaking into pieces. It falls apart in segments. I couldn't get enough of this. Even after the head falls apart, you hear all kinds of squelching and throat gargling sounds. It's pretty gross. And then, to top it all off, you can see that there is a person walking around in the lower half of the body. A ridiculous, but completely memorable moment. In fact, this movie became an instant classic the second I saw this scene. How can I even go on after this? Nothing that happens in the movie from here on out will be even a fraction of what we just saw. And yet, there are still some things to see. So, back to Paul in bed. In another Nightmare on Elm Street moment, Paul has a bad dream about Sam's dad. Then, he goes downstairs for some milk. Once again, it feels like Paul had absolutely no plan on what to do with Sam. He just sits around doing his normal, everyday things, while she goes off blowing up old ladies' heads.
It's just me, Mom. I wanted to eat something.
He hides Sam in his creepy attic in the meantime. The cops show up, find Elvira's head all over the walls, and Tom can't handle it.
Alright?
The next day, Sam escapes the attic, she looks at a picture, and then realizes what is happening. Paul's plan is finally falling apart. I mean, he didn't put much thought into it. Now, Tom is threatening to tell the police, and the professor reveals that Paul has been gone for days.
I haven't seen him for days.
What?
I figured he must be sick.
Paul
Sick?
somehow convinces Tom to show up and see Sam. As expected, Tom freaks out and finally exposes Paul.
Mom, please. No way. I'm calling the cops.
Damn you, Tom. You said you'd give it a chance.
Come on. Hey.
The two boys get into a decent brawl, and Tom gets punched in the nose.
You creep.
Everything is falling apart. Tom is going to the police. He wants to expose all this. As Paul's confused mother watches the fight, Tom looks up, and Robo Sam comes flying out of the window. The secret is now out. She starts beating the shit out of Tom, and then chokes Paul in her rage. Realizing she's become a monster, Robo Sam runs away. Paul follows. Of course, the 80s punk from earlier is back suddenly, and wants to kick Paul's ass. Robo Sam comes to the rescue. Another iconic scene. This line was repeated hundreds of times in my childhood. Now everyone can see that Sam is still alive. The cops corner her and then, finally, the real Sam starts to show up. How frustrating. All this time, I thought that Sam was actually aware, but it was mostly BB, I guess. So, this is the first time Sam's personality is coming through. Does this mean that she has been battling BB for control of her consciousness this whole time? If so, that's horribly tragic. Paul really messed this whole thing up. So, poor Sam is finally becoming aware in her mind, and says Paul's name. It's a tense standoff, but we know how it's going to end.
Stop! No!
Bummer. So, Sam is finally gone. How sad. But, Crazy Paul is not done yet. This idiot immediately runs to the morgue. He wants to save Sam all over again. At this point, this is a very sick idea. Anyway, this ends up being one of the biggest shock endings of my childhood.
Come with me, Paul.
What the hell was that? I mean, it freaked me out when I was a kid. But, when you think about it, it makes absolutely no sense. How did Sam's human body create a cyborg within her skin? There are so many stupid questions this creates. It's possible that Paul is having another nightmare. That would make sense. I mean, there have been several dream sequences in this movie already, so it would not be that far-fetched. In any case, the movie ends with Paul's neck being snapped by this new, evil, cyborg Sam, and then we hear the BB credit music. Man, what a strange movie now that I look at it again. There is a reason for this though. The studio wanted Craven to make a super gory, scary movie like Nightmare on Elm Street. Craven, allegedly, didn't want to add a bunch of these scenes, particularly Elvira's head exploding, and the shock ending, but the studio was pushing for it. In the end, the head explosion and shock ending are the most memorable parts of this, which is sad. The movie had an excellent romance, convincing performances, and overall a nice little feel. When I was young, it became the basketball head explosion movie, but it really has some standout performances by the main characters. It deals with some real issues, and pulls you in early on. It's too bad that it gets a bit ridiculous toward the third act. Also, the lack of a plan from Paul is a bit frustrating. I wish they had explored Sam more after her revival. I wanted to see her communicating with Paul and Tom. Also, why did she see everything in Sega CD Vision? When you become a cyborg, do you start to see everything as grainy CG? And what about Craven's original sci-fi romance version? Will that ever see the light of day? These are some serious questions we need answered. Anyway, it doesn't matter now. We still have a classic on our hands, and maybe it's just nostalgia, or maybe this movie leaves a mark. If you're in the mood for something like this, you may love or hate it. Either way, it's worth a chance.